Good evening and welcome to Mountain Bears. I'm Aeson and sitting me down with me tonight is techy-ish. How are you, darling?
I'm doing good. How are you this evening?
Evil is normal.
Oh, evil is normal.
Yeah, trying not to, I don't know, take over the world in one day. It gets annoying when you have to slow down for people.
It does a little. It does.
Did you catch last night's show? Hello, Miss Brenda.
I did not.
Okay. Well, me and Gwen was talking about dating, and, she's overlooking on Facebook dating, and I'll have to warn her about our opening story.
Yeah, a little bit there. Man sues dozens over Facebook dating groups' negative reviews of him. Oh, what a time to be alive and dating, right? A Chicago area man is suing dozens, claiming posts about him in the city's, quote, "Are we dating the same guy?" Facebook page ruined his reputation. So he is, let's see, I'm trying to get down to the part. He's suing for $75,000.
What?
Okay, so the suit names nearly 30 women, including the group's moderators, one woman's male relative, a multitude of Meta and Facebook properties, Patreon, GoFundMe, and the Are We Dating the Same Guy Inc., which owns and operates the network of groups and its website. Damn. I don't know what else to say, but damn. That's a lot of people to sue. So Nico D'Ambrosio, a 31-year-old Chicago area resident, alleges negative dating reviews about him posted to the city's subgroup of the Facebook phenomenon, which has more than 80,000 members, ruined his reputation and subjected him to defamation, doxing, emotional distress, and more. So, he claims the character assassination began in November when one defendant he had gone on a few dates with earlier in the year posted his photo to the page along with, quote, false and defamatory statements about him, then deleted it and reposted it anonymously after he reached out to her. There are lots of screenshots in the lawsuit. So one anonymous user said that he was very clingy, very fast, kept talking about how I don't want to see his bad side, and texted her on a different phone once she blocked his number. Other comments show red flag emojis or say he ghosted them.
Mm-hmm.
So, apparently he did reach out to Facebook and its parent company, Meta, demanding the post be removed to no avail. His lawsuit alleges the social media companies don't take action and, quote, willfully and intentionally continue to display the content to profit off of advertising on the Are We Dating the Same Guy groups. He also says through the groups, the tech defendants permit women to anonymously discuss and disparage men in their communities with which they have allegedly unsatisfactory dating experiences with no independent fact-checking of statements. They're permitted to make statements, publish photos, defame, threaten, harass, belittle, or otherwise attack men whom they allege to have engaged in a dating relationship with, void of any oversight and with total impunity, the lawsuit states. The Chicago man also alleges moderators asking users not to share posts outside of the invite-only group demonstrates their intent and willingness to conspire to conceal their illegal activities in order to ensure the continued commercial profitability of their illegal enterprise. It started as a small thing.
Okay.
Like, it sounds hilarious.
It does, but you know,
hilarious. Hey,
it
Devin.
may. Hi, Devin. But here's the thing with it.
Yeah.
Is this lawsuit billable?
Potentially. Well, because here's the thing, though, is the fact that Are We Dating the Same Guy operating as an actual company,
Mm-hmm.
that changes this from something that, like, a bunch of people are doing stuff, you know, that, okay, you probably don't want to do that. But, you know, hey, we're just a group of people doing a thing. It's not a company.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know. And moves it into the fact that, yeah, no, this is literally a company. They're making money off of this.
Right.
It's not just that you're sitting there, like, having a little coffee chat and going, this dude sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's making money off of it.
Right. I mean, we knew that would eventually happen, but we have a couple of friends that we commonly call the 411 of the area.
Mm-hmm. And I think, well, no, I think as independent people,
mm-hmm.
I think that's fine. You want to, like, sit around and, like, you form your own little group and you want to he, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. Probably not, but at the same time, like, is that a suable thing? No, that's a bunch of people talking about your shit.
Yeah.
Oh, well, too bad. The problem being this goes one step further and has a legitimate company existing behind it.
Right.
Like, you went through the process of incorporating.
Right.
To make money off of ad revenue for what? Like, I'm trying to understand why someone would actually go through the effort.
Right.
Of, like, because I'm in Facebook groups. We're all in Facebook groups at this point. I don't know.
We run a couple of our own.
Yeah. Now, granted, some of them are, like, related to the business. Some of them are, you know, like, they're kind of a side project or whatever.
Right.
But none of them were specifically, like, we didn't form a company just for the group.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So that's where I'm sitting here going, like, someone seriously, like, sat back and went, we've got a phenomenon worth going through the trouble of incorporating.
Right.
So why?
Yeah.
Like, why are you raising money on GoFundMe and Patreon and Venmo to, quote unquote, raise money for app development and group maintenance?
See, I feel like that's just profit seeking there.
Yeah,
I think
a little bit.
The other side of this, though, is, and this has been a large debate, this has been talked about in many circles, about being able to sue over reviews.
Well, there's a big difference, though, when we're talking about a review of a product, a review of a company, versus a review of a person who didn't even, like, because some sites do, like, there's dating sites that do let you leave reviews of people. But that's a consensual thing. You know, when you sign up for this website, that's part of the deal.
Right.
Like, that's a feature. This is a feature we have. You can very quickly, and you can control it. Like, if you don't like your reviews, delete your account.
All right.
you have an option to take yourself out of the equation of the negative, nasty review and go, okay, bye-bye. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna participate. That's the problem here is nowhere in this what did he intentionally choose to participate.
I see your point.
Yeah.
Okay. But at the same time, my point is like, dude, step your game up. And he doesn't have really bad reviews.
I mean, but does it matter? Like, if they were really horrible and they called him a serial killer,
right,
would that change it for you?
No.
Like, what would they have to say?
I think the reviews have to be non-factual. That's where I would get into trouble with it.
Okay. Well, but fundamentally, there's a potential that they are. Like, if some girl randomly says, oh, we went on a date, and they didn't.
Right.
That would be non-factual. Everything that would follow after that would be like, no, you didn't. That wasn't your experience with him.
Right. But like matched him a month or so ago. No conversation, never went anywhere. Went out with him a few times just over a year ago. He told me what I wanted to hear until I slept with him, and he ghosted me. So I'd steer clear. Like, none of these are saying that he's a stalker.
Right. None of them are saying anything. Like, I get what you mean. That no, they're not calling him a stalker or a rapist or like they're not doing that.
Right.
But fundamentally, like he, it looks like the area that he is in of Chicago. Women are using this because the aim of the company is, well, talking about why they raise money, says anytime we've done any sort of post for donations, it was to stay ahead of expenses, to feel appreciated, or to fund paying people to help me create new ways to help women stay safe.
Right.
So fundamentally, these are like this group of women has decided that for their safety, that they are going to put a lot of stock into the reviews by other women of guys on the dating market,
right,
without actually knowing the other women leaving the reviews.
Right.
I mean, it kind of seems set up for, like, I would have thought somewhere in this, you would have thought about the fact someone eventually somewhere is gonna start talking about people they haven't actually gone on a date with, that they make up a whole fantasy.
Right.
I mean, it happens all over the internet. Oh, I dated him. I mean, celebrities have this posed about them all the time.
Right.
And if you're in a group that is intentionally set up, I don't want to say to bash men, but it seems like that's how it's going.
Right.
But okay, which again, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I'm just like, you kind of did the silent part out loud, because it got out that you're sitting here as a company making money off of a Facebook group that is specifically set up as a business to bash men. Right. Not what you intended originally. You wanted to keep women safe, not really how that's going.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not really how that's going, is it?
Right.
And you're making money off of it. And you have no recourse for these men to get out,
Right.
to dispute, to argue, to even know that this is occurring.
Right.
And again, I think the bigger problem is set up as a business.
Yeah, but I'm like looking at some of the other like Google postings of this, and there's a lot of debate on the points you bring up. There's also a lot of debate on, there's other sites like myx.com.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there are other sites. The question is, what do they allow?
Right.
Like, can men come in and be like, that's my photo, that's my image, take it down? Like, that's what shut down revenge porn sites.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm trying to follow revenge porn logic.
Right.
Is that, sharing an image with someone is not permission to use the image.
Right.
That's what shut those sites down.
Right.
Is effectively, it was a giant copyright violation.
Mm-hmm.
You are the photographer.
Mm-hmm.
You own the copyright.
Right.
You cannot send that photo to someone else and them, in turn, claim the copyright.
Well, that would be a DNC takedown. I don't know. I'm kind of conflicted with this because I'm like, this is another suit over Facebook. And then I'm like, well, yeah, because it's really affecting people. But at the same time, I think he's going to have more than this.
Okay.
Okay, to get this $75,000 in damages.
Well, I think that was just throw a number in there.
Yeah. Like, I don't find the merit here. Hurt his reputation. That's a sticky one, okay? That's a defamation suit, and you're going to have to prove wrongdoing. And it's a lot more than, matched with him a few times and didn't go anywhere. Went out with him a few times a year ago. He told me what I wanted to hear and then ghosted me. These are things that are like, you're going to have to, where's the defamation? Where did it affect your money?
Well, it doesn't always have to be money.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Unless he appears in a movie, has some type of public career, he has to prove a financial loss.
I mean, granted, the lawsuit sounds like it's trying to throw everything it can at the wall.
Right.
Which, then again, sometimes you do have to throw... Because this is an awkward area where we don't have specific law.
Right.
And it does and it may end up being a copyright claim.
Right.
That might be, okay.
Right. But I'm saying that's not what he's going for.
Right.
Like, I'm questioning why the lawyer chose this instead of just filing a DNC copyright claim, which then the moderator or this website has the right to take down. I also think that with that he's not going to get anywhere with Meta Properties because of 420 he can't sue them.
Potentially.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's not about his actions as a user.
Right.
Which would generally be what would be covered under binding arbitration. This is about what's being done to him by covered users.
Right.
That he actually has no part in, other than he's the subject of.
Right.
So there may actually be the ability to get around the binding arbitration portion.
No, it's for something another.
Well, it has gotten harder to sue companies, if that's what you're meaning. Yes.
$422. It's a thing where it's that 1992 law that protects like Facebook, YouTube, and all of them from the content being shared there because they're the server.
Is a general principle. There are some aspects of it that this may be why the lawyer filed it this way, was to attack that.
Mm-hmm.
Is because this isn't exactly that.
Right.
Because what you would fundamentally have to claim about the group is that it's
I'm sorry. It's Section 230.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. And in some instances, there may still be debatable points.
Right.
And groups being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a little different
Mm-hmm.
than like the general functionality of the website.
Right.
So yeah, and especially in this situation where ultimately the person being damaged
Mm-hmm.
is not and cannot get access to the group.
Right.
Cannot defend themselves within the group.
Right.
Cannot even has tried and has been rejected on asking for his stuff to be taken down. Okay.
Right, but that's what I'm saying is like he's going to have some legal challenges to this.
Mm-hmm.
Section 230 is going to be a big one. Then it's the debate over, first free speech, able to say, nah, he sucks, don't pay him. Over, being allowed to do this. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. This is one we're going to have to follow up with.
Well, but it's also like they're trying to have both sides of it. On one hand, the reason they're saying they can ban users, suspend content, like remove groups, all this is because it's not free speech.
Right.
But then when you ask them to do something because it's not free speech and the content is objectionable to at least someone,
right,
then they turn around and want to protect free speech. Like, that's going to be a real dog chase tail, like, snake eats own head argument. Is like, where's the line?
Right.
Where's the line between free speech and not free speech on a platform that has already claimed it's not a public forum, it's a private company. And again, that may be why this is filed the way it is because it starts to border into the territory of this is a gray area. That if you want to claim free, you're not a source of free speech on one hand.
Right.
do you then have responsibility to moderate speech
Right.
on the other?
No.
Okay.
And I get that. Like, honey, I'm not done with this topic. Why do you keep trying to close it?
Sorry, it was sounding like you were.
No.
Okay.
You know,
like it's a wild topic.
it is.
In a wild situation. Like I personally, I would think my first reaction to finding out that I was being discussed on a website like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I would feel all that great about it in the beginning either.
Right.
Because my first thought isn't going to be, oh, I'm sure that's going well.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be like, oh, God, what? What are they saying?
No.
What? Like, I'm an imperfect human being, and I know this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, how bad is it? Like, because they always say, don't read the comments. And that's of celebrities. Or anyone who creates and publishes. Don't read the comments. You don't want to see them. And so I can't think my first reaction would be all that great, but to then start seeing the comments and the way that they are going.
Right.
Yeah. Like it's not. I mean, you may be absolutely right that he doesn't have enough negative content.
Right.
But
because let me check the legal definition of defamation. Like, this came up in the Toddy Westbrook case. It came up in a few different cases. Okay, defamation is any false information that harms the reputation of a person, business, or organization. Defamation, both libel and slander. Libel refer to defamation statements that are published or broadcasted, more permanent, while slander refers to verbal statements, but there has to be loss. And I think that's where he's going to get tricked at.
Well, and that was what I was trying to say earlier, is that can you define loss for defamation as opportunity? Like opportunity to date, opportunity to live freely, opportunity. Well, yeah, no, damage to the plaintiff's, let's see. In defamation cases, the damages that a jury may award to individuals or corporations include damage to the plaintiff's reputation on its own, specific economic damages such as loss of employment or benefits. So your loss of reputation could be enough.
if he's a professional dater.
Not necessarily. If I go on a website and there are cases of this, well, no, hi, we've had a great one on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, a little different because it does get into the professional side of it, but the psychic who was calling out the professor is a murderer.
Right.
Like, now, but so then you have to ask the question, was she suing as a professional, as a professor, or
Right.
was she suing purely as a person who's like, I'm not a murderer?
Well, that's because it affected her work. That's the problem.
I'm pretty sure it affected her whole life.
Right. But what the court is going to look at is how does this affect her professionally? And it does cause damages professionally for her because the psychic said that she slept with students.
Well, in that regard, yes. But I thought one's own good name.
Right.
Like,
but if
big, giant hypothetical, if I were to sit here
mm-hmm.
and you've never been on the show before, no one knows who you are.
Mm-hmm.
This show has nothing to do with you professionally. You are a stay-at-home.
Hold on. Thank you. Sorry, the cat was annoying me.
Right. But you were a stay-at-home.
Mm-hmm.
Not employed anywhere. If I were to sit here and call you a murderer,
mm-hmm.
do you not, even without an employment,
mm-hmm.
have the right to your own good name? Because you're not a murderer. Now people think you are a murderer.
Right.
No one wants to associate with the murderer. It's not true.
Right. And I get that. But my pause is he's going to have to sue each of those women individually.
Which he did.
Okay. But he's not going to be able to get Meta. Like, the professor could not sue Meta or, YouTube or TikTok. She could only sue the psychic.
Mm-hmm. Well, but I'd say most likely the reason, I don't think he's going to get a defamation award from Facebook.
Right. I don't think he's going to get defamation from any of these places. Maybe the women, but it's going to be show the standard. Where's the injury?
Well, what I was getting ready to say is the reason that you would sue Meta is to de-anonymize the Jane Does that are going to exist in this case with the number of comments being posted anonymously.
Well, see, that's just it. They can choose not to release that. That most he's going to get from Meta, that would be handled by a subpoena. Okay. So, again, I think he's got a really young lawyer. I haven't looked at the legal filing because I'm not going to pay Pacer for it. Love my baristas, but they don't pay me enough for a Pacer subscription. Right. So, looking at the news articles, this is a very case. Like if he's got one that's like got a brother for a lawyer, got an aunt for a lawyer, he's going to get screwed. And then I don't know, does Illinois have an anti-slap?
I have no idea.
Google, stop correcting what I write.
Well, not all the time. Sometimes it's useful.
Because they keep trying to tell me it's slip, and it's like, no, I didn't spell slip. Anti-slip laws. Yes, they do. So he could be losing out twice as much as what he's suing for, plus legal fees. So yeah, this will be interesting.
Yeah. Definitely want to see where that one goes. So, all righty.
Right. Because I doubt he'll get jurisdiction on Facebook because of 230. I doubt that covers all the rest of them, the GoFundMe, the Patreon, that whole 99 yards. So that leaves the defendants, the humans that he may or may not be able to recover from. And then he's going to have to prove it's false. Like the woman that said she slept with him and then he ghosted her. He's going to have to prove he didn't ghost her. Like, where's the text messages, dude?
Definitely. Of course, then again, that can also come down to if it's anonymous, who is she?
Exactly. And he'll have to prove that also.
Right.
Yeah, because if it's anonymous, he has to issue subpoenas to Facebook to turn over the anonymous IDs. Okay. Most judges will grant that. And then he's going to have to prove that, no, I didn't ghost this one. No, I didn't, I matched with them. They didn't go anywhere. Well, that's not defamation. That's choice of fact. Because defamation is one of the hardest cases to solve.
Well, it is difficult to prove, depending upon what the statements are,
right?
And whether they are truly harmful. Though generally, when we see those cases, they typically have more to do with celebrities,
right?
And then you start getting into the public figure exemptions.
Right.
Like if you run for office, and that's why I carefully worded what I said earlier. If you run for office, you open yourself up for public opinion.
Right. Yeah, because the other part is the damage or some harm caused to the reputation of the person or who is subject to. Yeah, so he's going to have a hard battle, but this will be an interesting one to watch.
Yeah. So we'll keep our eyes on that one and see what develops next on it. So next up, I believe, is the Project Rainbow hosts grand opening celebration for LGBTQ plus shelter.
Yes, this was lovely to see occur here in West Virginia. Morgantown has a new homeless shelter by Project Rainbow. It's the first LGBT shelter in West Virginia. I think it's a good thing. They've gotten some comments that I expected they would get, but I don't think people understand this. Oh, there's already shelters around. What about the veterans?
Oh, not that argument again.
Oh, yes. I was watching the Boyd posting of this on Facebook, and, it's kind of like, well, that's cute. I'm quite sure the veterans don't have to deny their veteranship in a shelter.
Or get forced to go to religious services that require you to make a profession of faith.
Right.
Usually a faith that's contradictory.
Right.
To your sexual orientation.
Right.
While being preached to about the fact that your sexual orientation isn't good. We'll go with that. We'll just go with that. So yeah, more to the point, and on some things I am definitely there for, like, and don't get me wrong, this is not an anti-veteran thing. It really isn't. I'm more so reacting from the perspective of, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this is private money. Not just a giant government grant grab.
Right.
Like, when you're sitting there talking about what about the veterans, and you're doing it in response to federal money being spent in other countries, on other people, for other things, especially for, homelessness and disasters and etc. I feel like you have a valid point. Right. Like, hi, while you've got the federal checkbook open, please, by all means, make sure you are taking care of our veterans. That I don't have a problem with. This is, and it does go hand in hand, however, with the realities of how we handle homelessness, both at a state, federal, municipal level, and how we don't handle it. Or how it ultimately gets handled. Because at a state, federal, municipal level, we just keep trying to move the problem somewhere else. We keep engaging architectural design that is aggressive, and trying to remove homeless encampments, and frequently just trying to stop the acknowledgement or any attempt to create a safety net for people who are homeless, pushing it onto private businesses, effectively, private charity, to address the problem. Usually those charities are set up in a way that they are religious, and typically have portions of the population they serve that are uncomfortable using their services.
Or get flat out denied.
Or run into problems with their, rule structure.
Right.
With what they're being asked to do. That typically has more to do with ensuring that they're not engaging in a behavior that on a religious basis the organization doesn't like, not in an actual harmful behavior. Like effectively doing everything they can to break up couples, split up families, do whatever they can to make their religious point,
right,
to a vulnerable population. Hence the reason people start getting interested very quickly in pulling together private resources. And again, I would point that out, private resources, to try to address the issue.
Right.
So I just find the whole what about the veterans argument kind of really not here, not now, not for this.
Right.
Like, it's not an invalid argument, don't get me wrong. It just doesn't go here.
And it's not that they're not doing it, you know, it's not that they're turning away anyone. What they're doing here is going, no, this is where you can come. You're not going to be forced to attend church every day before dinner. You're not going to get audited for everything you do. And when I say audited, I'm talking about, well, you can't wear that shirt. You know, that's just a simple t-shirt. You can't wear, you know, you have a job, but you have to go work in our thrift store to, you know, be here. You have to put in 5 hours a day in our thrift store just because you're homeless and working. And yes, there are those out there that are homeless and working. That also had to, you know, still pull another 5 hours just to have a warm place. I'm quite sure they're not going to be turning people away because they do not like how they're dressed, because they do not like how they speak, how they talk. Well, you know, these are the things that occur in homeless shelters.
And it's certainly a problem because it compounds, because it takes advantage of a vulnerable population and effectively says you now also don't have freedoms that you would otherwise have if you want our services.
Right.
Which fundamentally puts people at and keeps them out of frequently a warm, safe place to sleep, because fundamentally what they're being asked to do, they would rather not have a warm place, a safe place to sleep, than to either that, or it forces people to make the choice.
Right.
Do you want food and shelter or not?
Right.
It's a very irritating concept.
Right.
And we have irritating concepts all over West Virginia. It's nice to see we have one fewer. At least in one spot. Right. But here's the problem. I unfortunately am afraid that as great of a thing as this is,
right,
and I wish them all the best, and I hope it goes amazingly. I want to be wrong.
Right.
I'm afraid what they have just done is shine a spotlight for homelessness into the dark as a beacon to Morgantown, West Virginia. If you are gay and homeless, come to Morgantown, West Virginia. And somehow I get the feeling that it's not even going to be because of the gay. It's going to be more because of the homelessness and increasing a homeless population in an area that what you're most likely to see is Morgantown and Monongalia County both react negatively to this and do everything they can to try to shut them down at every single possible turn. Yeah.
You know.
For no other reason than you've brought the homelessness to our doorstep, and now we have to, you're putting demands on us
No.
And we have to see it.
Right.
Because homelessness isn't pretty.
Mm-mm.
It is an endless slew of things that go wrong in human lives. Not all of it is just, well, I don't have a home right now.
Right.
It is unfortunately also part and parcel of how we treat people with addiction. It's part and parcel of how we treat people with mental health issues.
Right.
It's part and parcel with how we treat people who are, of a sexual orientation that's not generally beloved in our communities. It's intersectionality. You start compounding people's issues, of which homelessness may only be one.
Right.
For some people, it's the only problem they got is I can't get a place to live.
Right.
I don't have enough money.
Right.
That's a simple problem.
Right.
One would have assumed.
Right.
But then for others, it's one of many problems. It's hand in hand with health issues and mental health issues and substance abuse and physical violence, prison records, you name it.
Right.
Because it affects everyone. You don't get a pass because you have a Harvard degree. You don't get a pass because you have 15 dozen health problems.
Right.
Like, it affects everyone. It can happen to anyone. And so it does become one of those things that we prefer not to look at.
Right.
That we don't want to think about. And looks bad when you're trying to talk about how pretty your city is. So the solution for a lot of areas is to push it down the road like you're sweeping dirt off your sidewalk.
Right. It's like a project we helped with, I guess it's a few years now because it was before the great shutdown. And it was just like sleeping bags, tents, wood, food. And this activist was literally fighting the city. Like, the land is cleared. The owner of the land says they don't care. As long as it's kept clean. As long as it's kept picked up, they can stay here. It isn't violating any ordinances to do this.
Oh, how fast they made ordinances, huh?
Oh, how fast that city council that cannot get their tram system working in Morgantown met and started passing additional ordinances.
Because their solution to deal with the homeless population is to not deal with the homeless population.
And in Morgantown, we rarely see cops when we're up there. Maybe it's because we don't go to certain areas. I'm not going to make a claim of that one way or another. But apparently, the Morgantown City Police had time to go through this encampment 3 times a night.
To ensure no one's getting rest. Like, and process this. This is what always kills me. It's what always kills me. You don't want to see homelessness in your city. Bad. Got you. I understand that. But you're going to do everything to harass and criminalize and torture people who are homeless. With and spend a lot of money doing it.
Right.
Yet you're not realizing, like, you're contributing to furthering homelessness.
Right.
Like, you have an individual that is without a home, without a permanent address, who let's assume best scenario is trying to rectify that.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps with better employment, getting employment, straightening out employment,
Mm-hmm.
all these things, trying to get access to health care, etc. And then you're going to take time 3 times a night to make sure to wake them up and move them along, demand identifying documents that they don't have in many cases, all in the name of not seeing the problem, because the problems will go away because it's been harassed and pestered. Moving people from the community in which they became homeless in to a community where they no longer know anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And you somehow, because you don't think, but somewhere in there has got to be this belief that this is helping someone, not the homeless person, obviously, but not recognizing that you're doing the exact opposite. Like you're making sure this person stays on the street longer.
Right.
Like, I have never had to sleep on a park bench before going for a job interview. I find the process already stressful enough.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine just sleeping on a park bench in the middle of, a city park at like 40 degrees. I don't know how much rest I would get with that to begin with, to then have to try to go in and be my best, most presentable self to try to get employment. Or better employment. And you're gonna add to that, you wake them up every couple of hours. So basically, without any of the comforts or conveniences of being in a hospital room, because that would be shelter, you're going to harass someone like a nurse checking vitals all night long, and then effectively expect them to go be their best selves, so that they can regain the things that they need to help rehouse themselves. Like,
yeah,
think it through. Like, think it through. Like, and you're spending a lot of money to do it this way.
Yeah.
Like, well, it's the worst way to do it.
I don't know if we covered it on our show. I know we talked about it. And this is going south, down to Princeton. Recently, there was a body found frozen to a bike in a church parking lot on a night like tonight. Homeless person. And most of the comments there were so terrible. Like, cannot imagine someone would take the time to type that out. When it's like, did you not see the temperatures? Like, we're going into the teens tonight with negative wind chill.
And so what was their problem? That how dare they go to this church in the middle of a freezing cold night and then have the audacity to die of exposure?
Right. Basically. Like, instead of going, how sad is it that in West Virginia we have a loss of population, we have a bunch of derelict buildings, we have more churches than we have Walmarts and Dollar Generals.
And all of them have locks on the door and operating hours.
Yes.
Which, and you've gone into that one before, that it's just such a strange concept to you.
Yeah.
That that house of worship has operating hours and locks on the door. Right. Which, things happen. I understand having locks on the door, and that, there can be issues there. I get that. But at the same time, no, I also get it from your perspective that no, like, what are you doing as a church?
Right.
I mean, I'm not specifically trying to call out and blame this church.
No, I'm not blaming the church. I'm blaming the parishioners. I'm blaming, just down the street here, there's Church of the Nazarene. They have a huge church. They have a lovely gym. They have an expansive parking lot. They have, I believe it's a whole fitness center and nap room and all this. It isn't even connected to their church. Like they host a full carnival every year. They do all this.
Where's the 20 volunteers to show up on extended below freezing temperatures to run a warming station / temporary shelter?
Right. And if you can build all this, does it cost you that much to throw a tin can, and I mean 10 cans of soup in a crock pot that we know you have? You had 30 of them at the hot dog sale this fall. And I'm quite sure there's enough bread stores around here that will gladly give you French bread because they're almost giving it to every customer that comes in.
Or the audacity, someone buys it. It's not that much money.
No.
It's
or
really
the audacity to perk some coffee.
Yeah.
And go, all we got's the building. I've got
open the door.
Right. And you've already got the heat on.
Shut up about God and Jesus. Just shut up about God and Jesus. And let some people in. Like, and it may just be 21 of you that night, 20 volunteers and one little person off the street who happened to be in such a shape as to need your help. And that's okay. I'm sure y'all can have fun and have a nice warm evening and just enjoy it.
Right.
You can fellowship together, make sure someone gets a meal and a bed and stays warm and safe.
Right.
I like, because I sit there and I say that, and it's like, I don't see if this, I struggle with it. Like, I'm not saying every church in an area has to do it. That's probably overkill for most areas.
Right.
Unless you're very low, because not that West Virginia is, but if you have a very low, like, homeless population versus number of churches, you're probably not going to need all of them to be open.
Well, not even all, all of them would be lovely, but that's kind of an overuse of services. Now, we have what is called a fellowship of pastors in this state. We recently had in Raleigh County, I've seen a revival that went countywide. You're telling me that I believe it's 182 in that fellowship. I may be a little off on the numbers. It's been a few damn years. I'm old, damn it. That there isn't, that there isn't a church and a ladies' circle and a prayer warrior circle that I'm sure, I know for a fact, will meet and pray for hours all night long. Gone for 2 and 3 days.
Out some cots. Buy some cots. No, so I just looked it up. As of January 9th, 2024, there are 3,715 churches in the state of West Virginia.
Are you sure those are Christian churches?
I did not specifically look for that. I said number of churches in West Virginia. That was my search. Okay. There are a total of 3,715 churches is what pops up.
Okay.
So let's assume most of those are gonna be Christian.
Yeah.
Like, we'll just Pareto it and call it 80-20. 20% of these are non-Christian. 80% are Christian.
Mm-hmm.
So here's my theory.
Mm-hmm.
So 3,715 churches, period.
Mm-hmm.
Times 0.8, that drops us down to 2,972 churches.
Okay.
All right.
Now,
we have 55 counties.
mm-hmm.
So there should be 54 on average
Mm-hmm.
churches in each county.
Mm-hmm.
And you're telling me that 10% of those, like
Well,
five,
mm-hmm.
five churches in a county,
Mm-hmm.
couldn't be open during a winter storm state of emergency declaration.
Okay. Now let's do some additional math here, because I know the first thing is we don't have the people. All right. So you have a deacon board that has to be 3 members.
Mm-hmm.
You have a first lady and a pastor and an assistant pastor and the youth pastor.
Okay, well, let's usually knowing that statistically, okay, one, if you're talking about the pastor's wife, we need to like take one of the two out of the equation because there may be children.
All right, so
and typically your youth pastors are also a married couple.
Right. Again, that's why I only counted one of them.
Okay, cool. Gotcha. Keep
so we
going.
have 3 deacons' wives. At minimum, guarantee any church has a minimum of 3 deacons. We have 3 pastorals.
Mm-hmm.
We will have a lady of the circle. So we're up to 6. And the head of the prayer circle, prayer warriors, we'll say there's 10 of them in each church. We'll just go with 10. So we're up to 16 people there. Times all these churches.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the 54 or the 5?
We'll go with the 5.
Okay. So 16. Actually, I'm going to do it by the 55 because I inadvertently. But I'll fix it here in a second.
Okay.
So for every single church that we're estimating that is Christian, that should be 864 people.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're going to take 10% of that. That should be 86.
Right.
Yeah. We can't find 86 West Virginians.
Mm-hmm. They can bring a can of veggies. The pastor should have meat in the freezer. And a pot of coffee.
Wait, that's 86 people per county. I should have clarified. That's 86 people in each county.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really?
I mean, you gotta have some board retirees, you know?
Well, not only board retirees, but there are ladies of the church. Lord,
don't you have a church fan? Like, and I'm not trying to put this off on I'm not trying to put it off on Christians. I'm just saying, if we want to talk about like the situation of someone dying in a church parking lot of exposure,
mm-hmm.
my brain kind of screams at like this is kind of screwed up.
Mm-hmm.
Like it should be a situation of wrong church, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm so sad you didn't make it 3 more churches up the road. Because it's West Virginia, there's 3 more churches up the road. Right. Don't care what road you're on, there's 3 more churches up the road. Any road, pick a road, there's 3 churches on it. I will just about guarantee it.
Right.
If it's more than 5 miles, there are 3 churches on that road. I will almost guarantee. So anywho, but no, just as an example, if we want to really talk about it, that alone That's 5 places.
Right.
And again, I don't want to put it off on the churches that are like, we have 20 members over the age of 80 and a single pastor.
Right.
No, go sit down. Like there's ways you can help, but this isn't it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I'm sure you're like one room schoolhouse of a church.
Right.
Like, you know, you're
Right.
doing your best.
Now, speaking of someone doing their best. No, I actually am making this in a sincere comment. This is probably the best political statement I have heard, and I have faith in this person in actually doing it.
Okay.
We've got to get everyone on the same page. The other things, too, is we've got to make sure we have volunteers in the volunteer network, because no one resource is going to be able to facilitate all of it, or all the manpower or everything else we'll need. It's going to take volunteers.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think I can swallow my religious beliefs long enough to go volunteer at a church for a warming center / pop-up homeless shelter.
Right.
Like, put your God and Jesus on a shelf. We can do this.
Right.
Like, I'll bite my tongue on my fucks and dams, and we'll get through the evening.
Right.
May have to slip out of what in damnation, but
yeah. But this county commissioner is taking it seriously. He's actually done a lot of good work down in Mercer County, so I have faith in him. But someone else brought up in the comments, and you're going to have to tell the story on this one. Okay. Wasn't the rescue scanner that we spent our lovely time going through a training at supposed to be used as a warming station when it was built?
I know that it is one of the emergency shelters.
Right.
Like, it is an emergency shelter.
Right.
And technically, yes, it should be open if there is but yeah, that was my understanding. Yeah, Princeton Rescue Squad's emergency shelter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's literally on their website.
Yeah. What the hell?
Yeah, it's literally on their website is what our building offers. Amongst other things, emergency shelter.
No. We're at 10 degrees. But it's not
Better be open.
Should be.
We're under the governor has declared a state of emergency.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me that in this weather that opens the door.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the magic key to the lock. We are under a governor state of emergency declaration.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want you to read Brenda's comment, because I got a comment back to it.
All right, Brenda says, my friend does the funeral dinner for her church. She rarely has more than 1 to 2 help her. Fairly decent sized church. They don't volunteer like they used to. No one volunteers in a church.
Well, not anymore.
Like, that's your pastor's role. That's sorry, they don't make pastors like they used to either. Like,
well, no,
they're supposed to struggle to say no to God here.
Well, no. See, here's the thing. This is what Dad would do. Anytime the ladies' circle dropped below a certain number, the man's choral dropped beside a certain number, the hospital visitation team dropped beside a certain number. All that church would get a hell and brimstone about how the rich man can't get into heaven, and Like, that's the pastor's fault for not building community.
I'm just saying, they don't make pastors like they used to.
They don't. They do not.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I think it's wrong to manipulate your congregation in general, but sometimes I think you're allowed to pass if you save people from dying in the street of exposure. You can turn up the say no to God problem as much as you want to for that one. Like, well, crank it to 11. Crank it to 11. How do you say no to God?
And this is what gets me, because I've had to do this a few times. Because, yes, I am listed as clergy at a number of places. Wiccan clergy.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't function on office hours for clergy work. I've been called to hospitals. I've been called to prisons. Thank God I know the last rites. Thank the goddess I was raised as a preacher's son and at least know enough of the Bible to get them through that. Because I've been called out for it. Why? Because they can't get a pastor to come. But they're making now. Google average pay of a pastor, because we're getting ready to talk about a pastor.
And it looks like the Bluefield Daily Telegraph actually ran a story on January 5th.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, were handing out applications on Thursday. 2 volunteers ready to consider the background check, training, and long hours it will take to staff a warming station for people who have nowhere to go when temperatures and wind chills drop to dangerous lows. So yeah.
Yeah.
So they should be yeah, so the decision on when a warming station would open will depend on temperatures and wind chill factors. Gano said, for example, if the temperature is 25 degrees and there's a 24 mile per hour wind, the real field temperature could be 9. So yeah.
We're going to teach Gano math.
Apparently. But yeah, so
yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, why aren't we doing more of this? Like,
right.
Why aren't we more doing?
All right. Why aren't we seeing any more? Why aren't we seeing interfaith interworking anymore?
Or just our local services? And I don't care that someone's homeless. Figure it the fuck out.
Exactly.
Figure it the fuck out.
Right. You know, we have job fairs. Why don't we have health fairs?
We have everything else on Facebook. Where's that? I'm sorry, I haven't seen it.
Right.
Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's the algorithm fucking with me. Did you see anything go around town?
No. No.
Like, I'm not unwilling to help. Just tell me what you need. If I can provide it and do it, I will.
Right.
I think I can go hang out at a warming station for a couple of days.
Right. Bye, honey. Take your white gloves.
No, I'm not taking white gloves. The situations required for me to be in white gloves are against my will.
You're a first lady now. Get used to white gloves.
I am no lady.
Anyhow, moving on. Moving on. So, over to Kentucky. Speaking of bad pastors that really needs to go and read, I don't care any of the 26 versions of the Bible, preferably the New Testament. and we see this all, it drives me crazy. You will see those evangelical pastors that are out for blood, and they'll be bragging. And I do mean bragging whenever a natural disaster hits a community, like when Katrina hit New Orleans. There was a few of those um, wayward pastors sprouting. Oh, that's because of all the Mardi Gras and all the sin going on there. Guatemala and some, that's God punishing them. Although someone's been very quiet over in Wilson County, Tennessee.
Yes. So the roof of a Wilson County church collapsed Monday evening due to the weight of snow. Pastor Greg Locke with Global Vision Bible Church took to social media to share the damage to the church, which worships underneath a tent in Wilson County. It's apparently quite a tent. Like you might be thinking like a lot smaller than it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty large tent.
Right.
So the church has sparked controversy for neighbors with concerns over noise and parking for its large events. Over social media, Locke detailed how the weight of the snow caused the tent's roof to collapse, creating a giant hole and damaging the HVAC system. So it's a tent with an HVAC system. Process that.
Okay, hold up.
Yeah.
You guys have to get a look at this church, this tent. I want this tent. Like his
Who doesn't? Like, I will glamp in that. Like, not in the snow, obviously, but
right.
I mean, talk about you can't get your volunteers out, Mr. Locke. Someone need to get some.
Look at this tent. Yeah.
That's a little more than a tent. Like like that's what I'm saying. When you say tent,
mm-hmm.
you think something a lot different than it is.
Yeah.
But yeah. I'm just curious, how is there weight of snow?
Right.
If they were running the HVAC system on a tent.
The HVAC is actually tied to the support pipes. Like instead of anchoring in the board into real wood, there was HVAC to the pipes. Like I know these were revival tent setups that are mega event setups. And it's got more luxuries than a brick and mortar church ever had. Now, why? See, sitting here, I can sit in the seat of judgment and be questioning a few things. First of all, Mr. Lockett, why has your God not blessed you with a brick and mortar church or with the bricks to build the church? Like all that audio-visual equipment there that you're supposedly using for the glory of God. Last time I checked, God deals in wood, bricks, and concrete.
Well, just in general,
mm-hmm.
buildings tend to be a good starting point.
Right.
Well, but I'm still sitting here going, you knew it was going to snow.
Mm-hmm.
Why there's no way that tent is that insulated.
Right.
There's no way. Like, you would have to prove it. Like, someone would have to prove to me
mm-hmm.
that it is so well insulated.
Right.
That if the HVAC system had been on,
mm-hmm.
that snow was still capable of accumulating.
Right.
In which case, I would have to ask, what flippin' idiot said, nah.
We need a TV. We need a big screen TV. We need lighting and sound more than we need brick and mortar.
Or, aluminum.
Right.
I mean, I'm sorry. They've been working out of this tent for how long?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, dear God, it takes a week to put up a Dollar General. It's about the same size.
Right.
Like, come on, man.
Right.
Not that Dollar Generals are all that great.
Well,
sorry, our newest one leaks like a sieve.
yes, but let's go back in time to maybe 1970. It took a league of 10 men to get a church up in 4 weeks while working full-time jobs. Now, we're not talking all pretty. We're talking brick, mortar, studs and walls, lights, water, the basics. They didn't even get it painted. They did get the windows in. There's a principle that I've heard many times in my life. You got to be a good steward. You got to be a good steward. You got to, is this a good steward of the money that God provided you? Heard that so long, we should have a shirt of it at this point. I'm sure it's somewhere on a sign, either in the attic or somewhere in this house. You have the bread.
Huh.
What you find?
The tent's less than a year old.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and it maybe not. So, yeah, this is from back in February of last year, February 13th. The whole reason they have a tent is dozens of noise complaints have been filed against the Global Vision Church in Mount Juliet. Over the weekend, the church put up a new tent in efforts to help soundproof the church. However, neighbors who live directly across the street said they haven't noticed much of a difference yet when it comes to the noise. Right. But yeah, so as of 2023, the church itself, in whatever freestanding form it is, was only 2 years old.
Right.
And the ordeal started for one of the neighbors 2 years ago, when they basically inhabited the property. So the church is almost 3. Oh, yeah. So, he said worshiping underneath a tent is what makes the most sense for the congregation of his size. We grew so fast that a tent is really the only option. Even if we broke ground today, we would still need to be in a tent for 2 to 3 years, Locke said. However, neighbors said it's not just sound that is making them a nuisance of a neighbor. We have put up no trespassing signs, no parking signs, but people have been parking on our property and has been a big issue, the neighbors said. Yeah. Okay, so as far as sound goes, Locke said they plan to put walls up around the tent, which could take another month or so before the tent is more soundproof.
Right.
Priorities, y'all. Priorities. Oh. Priorities. I'm just thinking, there was nowhere else y'all could have been meeting. I have so many questions.
Well,
it just seems like this was a lot of dumb that led them here.
Well, there's a lot of dumb, but there's a lot of really. And what I mean by really is this. You know, if you fill all the places in every seat in a pew at 10 o'clock on Sunday, you know what the solution to that is, Greg? You know what the godly solution to that is? You preach a second sermon at 1 p.m. and at 4 p.m. until, you're blessed enough, and not by crying on Facebook for a new tent, but you're blessed enough to be able to expand your church, not your house.
There is that. Oh, they have around 7,000 followers that attend. Out of 7,000 people, y'all couldn't figure out anything better than a tent. Like, I'm just saying, like, I don't mean to, you know what I mean? But it's like, that's the best you can do on 7,000 people.
God.
Anywho, it kills me. So anyway, Brenda says, shouldn't he be on his knees asking how he offended God, since he says natural disasters are God's punishment?
Well, he lives in a 6,504-foot house on 5.1 acres with 6 bathrooms. The house in September of 2021 went to market for $1,400,000, and it's estimated that it would be a $2 million home.
Yeah. I'm more concerned. Did they actually break ground on a real building?
No.
So, like, just indefinitely, we're going to operate out of a tent.
Right.
Like, that was the plan.
That was the plan.
I'm sorry, just the layers of this onion.
Oh, we're getting to it.
It's so bad. Like, I just keep hearing the words, buy a lottery ticket.
I hear the words,
God help you.
I know exactly where most of his money's gone. I don't know. I could have a pretty good circle in that building. What about you? I'm sure you can have a philosophical debate.
That's quite the house there, Greg. That's quite the house. Pastor Locke, that is quite a house. The mortgage payments have to be killer. So do the property taxes and everything else.
Right. Well, what's he doing? Is he running food shelters on Monday? On Tuesday, he's busy working, I don't know, visiting the homeless, seeing if he can get them to come to church, what services they need. Is he out there as his Christ, which, there's multiple versions of this, being with the lay people? As his church is damaged, what's he doing? What do you think he's doing?
Oh, I'm assuming traveling.
Yeah. And complaining about hotels.
Well, now I see his whole problem. He's really against the Masonic Lodge, too.
But no, I agree with Brenda.
Oh, Devin's going tent revival. Nope, tent's dead. Tent died.
And just a reminder to all those it happens all the time. Drives me crazy. If you're living on Social Security, if you are living on benefits, do not give to the church in money. Give in services. Your 10% should be in services, not out of your check that you're trying to feed your family with.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Very ridiculous.
Yeah, I think he could hold it at his house. So I'm sure he doesn't want to take off his neighbors.
Well, he's got 5. The house has got acres on the side of it. There's plenty of parking. There is plenty of parking. There is, it isn't, there's a whole damn parking lot there over by the horse stables. Yeah.
Oh, so that's just a whole.
That hits me on so many levels. 1, he's a hate monger. 2, he's a false prophet. 3, he's not even living his religion. Granted, there are many that are not living, that have the mega churches that aren't living the old religions. Okay, it was back in the 80s, and for those that remember the 80s, it was hard. Especially in West Virginia, the mines were shut down. They were on strike or closing. Families were barely getting by. There were many laundry baskets went out my front door. But at the same time, you know what else was scheduled? Potluck. Youth potluck. Choir potluck. This potluck, that potluck. Every Sunday, breakfast and dinner. Sometimes midnight snacks. Why? Because it was the 80s and everybody was poor. I don't get these men. I don't get him. I don't get Henny. Never got Henny. Like, I'm not their religion. And I'm going, what?
Well, and it's a situation, there's a lot of things that a group that large could do.
Yeah.
Besides meet a couple of times a week and scream about people they hate.
Right. Now we're going to have to take a break. We'll be right back with Are You the Asshole and wrapping this one up.
All right.
Well, in a minute, I'm going to find. All right, we're just going to do a hold. I'm back. Sorry, guys. Lovely new medicine is all I have to say. We're still working its schedule out.
Hey, we'll get there.
Yeah. All right. So, you make a great point, um, Devin, about being pagan and having your own circles. But there comes this is bad in pagan community. Also, I think it's human race in general. I think we've forgotten. In a circle, the circle's point is to serve the community. The circle's point is to serve its circle first. So don't care who you are. If you ain't getting filled one way or another in what you're in, find something else. And if you see charlatans out there, call them on it. All right, I need to know, are you the asshole to get my blood pressure down?
All right, so am I the asshole for telling my husband our son was gay? I, 32 female, caught my son, 15 male, cuddling with his friend, 15 male, while they were sleeping in their room. I decided not to wake them up, and I discussed it with my husband, 34 male, and the possibility that our son might be gay came up. While I initially agreed with my husband's suggestion to approach our son when his friend left, I later decided that we should just wait until our son was comfortable sharing this with us. My husband argued, saying, what if he never tells us that he's gay? I told my husband that if he doesn't tell us that he's gay, then he's probably not. I told him that we should just let our son know that we'll love him regardless and leave it at that. However, my husband went against our agreement and questioned our son about his sexual orientation while I was driving my son's friend home. When I returned home, I discovered my son in tears, yelling and accusing me of outing him. I was confused and told my son that I didn't know what he was talking about. My son told me while he was crying that his father revealed what I saw and basically coerced him into coming out before he was ready. My son asked me why I would tell his father and why I would enter his room without his permission. I started crying and told my son that I was sorry and that I loved him and accepted him no matter what. My son remained distant and is now refusing to speak to me and his father. When I confronted my husband, I told him that I was angry that he threw me under the bus. He claimed he didn't mean any harm, only shared what I mentioned to our son, hoping it'll make him comfortable about coming out to us. Despite his pleas for forgiveness, I can't help but feel anger towards him, knowing my son is now feeling hatred for me for something that I actively tried to prevent. My husband argues that blaming him for our son's emotions is unfair and told me our son is only going through an emotional phase that will pass. Despite him begging for my son and my forgiveness, telling us that he meant no harm, I'm torn between forgiving him because I blame him for causing our son to be angry with me. So edit, I entered my son's room because I was doing laundry and planning on washing my son's clothes. I did knock to see if they were awake and waited for a response. And when I got no response, I entered. I only usually do this when I plan on washing clothes, as I like to do it early in the morning. I've been doing this since my son was 12, and he told me that he didn't mind it because he would wake up with clean clothes. When I saw my son and his friend cuddling, I immediately walked out of his room and shut the door. If I was thinking straight, and I should have waited for his friend to leave. Sorry for not mentioning before. Oh, take it on.
This is the difficult one.
Okay.
Very difficult. Because I don't care.
There's moving parts here. There's a lot of moving
parts. There's moving parts. Son's going to need to get used to coming out and people questioning it. Sorry, baby boy, grow the hell up. You get to come out 4 billion more times in your life. You're still young. Secondly, you're really blessed to have the parents you do. Given that. Father, he's an asshole.
I think he's a well-intentioned asshole.
He's a well-intentioned asshole, but he's an asshole.
Yeah.
Now, with that, on the other side of this strike, I'd be mad at him. I'd be mad at him
Well, because the actual question is, am I the asshole for telling my husband our son was gay?
Yes. Because you apparently knew he
You're
could
the asshole.
for confidence.
Yeah. I cannot imagine that after what I assume is about 15 years of marriage, give or take, that you didn't know your husband well enough to know what was about to happen.
Right.
That you shared information about your son.
Right.
He told you what he was going to do, what he wanted to do. I can't imagine this is the first time that you've tried to change his mind and he has done exactly what he said he was going to do in the beginning.
Right.
I think it's understandable that you got a little excitable. Yeah. I'm not sure what other word to use. You got a little excitable about the situation.
Right.
And needed to talk to someone.
Right.
Unfortunately, you chose your husband.
Right.
And for that, I have to say, I think you're the asshole.
Right.
I don't think you were an ill-intentioned person doing this. I don't think you're intentionally an asshole.
Right.
Just as I don't think your husband was intentionally an asshole.
Right.
But I think it does unfortunately make you the asshole.
Right. Now, since you've took this enlightened approach for the better, there needs to be some hard conversations. Correct. That we're counting the parents here. We're not counting the son. There's no shame. The sun comes out when the sun comes out.
Yeah.
Well, shut up.
Like any ESH is going to be non-son.
Right.
Like I'm not going to throw this at the 15-year-old who just got outed and has to now deal with the fact that he forgot his mother was coming in his room, saw something she shouldn't have, talked about it out of turn before even talking to him, and shared it with his father, who cannot be trusted as far as you can throw him, not to use information that he has to find things out or confront people.
Right.
In very awkward and uncomfortable ways.
Right.
So, yeah. Not blaming the 15-year-old for that. They didn't ask to be in this situation. It's just where they're at.
Right. So, with that, Mom, stay the hell out of your son's room.
Yep.
I think after age, 10?
I think after 12. I think after 12, definitely. Like, you started this at the wrong point.
Right.
Like, you want clean clothes? Set the laundry hamper outside your door.
Right.
Would have been simple enough.
Exactly. Or move the laundry hamper.
You taught him to sit, stay, roll over, play dead, walk, talk, and eat. I think you can manage set your hamper outside your room. I'm not coming in for it.
Exactly. The bigger problem there is there's a guest. She had her son's permission. She didn't have the friend's permission. Again, not the point. The point overall is now you got to deal with the situation. Now you've got to have some very detailed conversations that you probably weren't expecting to have with your son. Let's be honest.
Well, I mean, it changed the conversation a little, and you probably didn't think you needed to start the conversation yet. You were holding on to your baby boy, who's getting a little more manly every day. Because 15, they do that.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of changes between 12 and 18, and 15 is kind of that midpoint. Right. But no, and I really don't think it was. I think honestly, this is a pattern, and she followed it and didn't think about it.
Right.
I'm sure this is like you doing laundry in the morning.
Right.
It is pre-coffee autopilot.
Right.
Get up, grab the laundry, start the machine, fix the coffee, do the things, start your day, fix some breakfast, do the things.
Right.
Just total autopilot. This has worked for 3 years, 4 years, whatever. I think she totally wasn't even thinking about the friend being
there. Right.
Until
right. But this is where like bedroom locks become important in conversations about bedroom locks and bedroom privacy and self-autonomy and safety and discussions on safety, discussions on medical care, especially at this early age. Okay, because if you train them now, they'll have it in their head, 6 months I need to go see the doctor. 6 months I need to get this done. 6 months I need to get that done. Up, it's 4 a.m. We live in West Virginia. No, I'm not going out. Sorry.
Yeah, if you want to talk about how you make up for this, I think you go by the locking doorknob that only he has a key to. Because he's practically an adult now, and there are obvious issues with mom walking in, of which she has stumbled into but one. And the exchange on the door lock is you set your clothes out the night before if you want your laundry done by your mother.
Right.
I think that's fair. Devin, I'm kind of there. I think by 15, do your own laundry. Like you should be taught that. I'm trying to fix the situation, not change the world. Some of these mamas know the only way they were going to get their babies home is when the laundry is dirty. They try to hold on to that little tether for as long as they can. He has to come home for clothes. Having unfortunately destroyed that tether for many a mama at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, as I taught way too many adult men how to use a washing machine and a dryer. I can't advocate that one because I've pissed off too many mamas for that.
I'll say your apology.
I'm sorry to the mothers of students that lived in Moorstrong Dormitory between 2000 and 2003, thereabouts, as well as Tower Village. From 03 to 05. Yeah. I apologize to the mother of anyone I educated and ruined your tether. In my defense, it was also not an easy process, and I really wanted to smack you in the moment for being like, how are you a 20-year-old adult who doesn't know what to do?
Right. All right. So
like
the poll is up.
Standing in front of the machine, clueless. I don't know what happens next.
All right. So the poll is up. Let's discuss all the choices. It's over on Aeson Night YouTube. If you aren't over on Aeson Night YouTube, go over to Aeson Night YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the likey button. We really like the likey button, and vote in the poll.
Yes.
All right. The choices are yes, the mother is an asshole. The choices is no, the mother is not an asshole. Everyone is shitty here. That is dad and mom. And you're in a dill pickle. Meaning, you're none of that, but I can't fix that.
There you go. It is a dill pickle.
Yeah.
All right. So, moving on to polyamory advice request. Newish solo poly who keeps dating one member of a couple. Hi there. I've been in 2 polycules now where I've been the new addition to a couple that already exists, but I'm only dating one partner. In one case, I was dating the wife, and in the last case, the boyfriend. The relationship's dating ended because the meta was having a lot of feelings and insecurities that would have been felt no matter who their partner dated. Despite having commitments like marriage and plans to move in together. I'm feeling a little disappointed in these similar trajectories as I am newer-ish to this. My first polycule lasted about 1.5 years. This newer one was just in the beginning stages of dating and figuring out how it would work. I know that I am poly to my core, and I don't see myself ever going monogamous or monogamous. I guess I'm seeking advice how to navigate and determine if the connection is even worth exploring when it's an already established couple. I have not dated couples before and don't think I am interested in that dynamic. Are there things you look for when you meet someone who is already partnered? Are there red flags that tell you the meta may not actually be ready? And is there any advice to support the meta? In both of these cases, mental health played a major factor in the perception of the relationship and the codependency that existed between the two partners, and it sucked as my first few experiences with the polyam dynamic. I am hoping I can learn from those of you who have been through this and who have working polycules. Honestly, I think you kind of started to identify some red flags there.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily about mental health. I don't think you're going to explore the polycule world without running into people who have mental health issues. That's not the problem. The codependency can be very much a red flag.
Right.
That's yeah.
For me, it's the comfortability of the couple. What I mean by that is like date 3 or 4, you stop by the house to pick him or her up, and the meta's non-plus. Doesn't even acknowledge that you walk through the door and they're sitting there watching the TV.
Is that the
That's
red
an
flag
issue.
or the?
That's a red flag.
Okay.
If when you're on a date with them, their phone is the most active device on the date. And I'm not talking for map directions, I'm talking texts, phone calls, messages.
Where are you at? What you doing? When are you going to be home? You know, I just saw this thing on television that reminded me of blah, 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 blah. If your date has their head stuck in a phone for the duration of the date, you're not on a date with them.
Right.
I don't know what else to say. That is a level of like insecurity and suspicion occurring within quote unquote poly that is a little closer to my spouse is out cheating on me and I'm aware.
Right.
Like, because that's how that spouse is kind of treating it.
Right. Now give them a nice example of what a date expects when picking me up.
Hi, how's it going? Bring him home in one piece.
Don't forget my cheesecake, I think was the last comment you made.
Don't forget my cheesecake. You forgot my cheesecake, though.
You got a whole cheesecake. I picked it up from Kroger's, and furthermore, we were going for a hike. There was no cheesecake to be available.
Okay, that's fair. Nature should have more cheesecake, is what I'm saying. Like you're such a cheap date. Well, I require a restaurant that serves cheesecake.
I don't even think. No, we didn't hit the restaurant. The last date I went out on, we went hiking.
Yes, I'm so mad.
I know.
Like, new cheesecake tree or wrong season for it? Exactly.
Right.
This is what nature needs more of.
Right. it's like running into, going to anybody's house to pick somebody up. It should not be confrontational.
No. But it shouldn't also feel like that you are the cold air that moves through the room.
Right.
Like, or for those of you who have pets, it should not be like when your dog has horrific fumigational gas and there's the general look of like, oh,
right.
It shouldn't be that either.
Right. Now, some of my dates you are a lot more friendlier with. Of course, you've seen them more often. They've hung out for dinner because we do kitchen table, so we're a little bit different. But that's about where it should be at.
I feel it's my duty, to say bring him back in one piece. I mean, granted, I'm the one over here who also frequently says, take my husband, please, you'll bring him back.
Mm-hmm.
He hates when I say that.
No, I don't.
No idea.
The only time I hate when you say that is when the other person doesn't get it.
Which I think identifies whether or not that's going to be a good relationship.
Right.
Has it ever failed to work out that someone who has not gotten that has been a qualified, valuable relationship?
No. Normally they disappear after that comment.
Exactly.
But anyhow. All right,
I'm
let's
not
see
trying to drive them away. I'm just saying you'll bring him back. We know him.
Mm-hmm. Ooh. So we have a tie for Are You an Asshole?
Ooh. Oh, you have no more advice for solo poly?
Solo poly, again, I think that you've got to set back. You've got to be choosing very carefully. You got to know the dynamics. And I think you need to be very comfortable and clear with what's your veto policy.
I think from me,
Mm-hmm.
I think you also have to accept that, yes, if you're going into an existing nesting partner relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and that's more what you're talking about. This can happen.
Yeah.
It just can. If you want to try to screen it a little bit, ask how they got into polyamory.
Mm-hmm.
And watch the story unfold. It's not really about how. It's about the look that they give as they tell the story. Because if this was a hard-fought war,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to wash over their face. Yeah, no. Cut it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cut it. Because no one who gets into polyamory that is part of a nesting partner couple,
Mm-hmm.
or triad or whatever, that does that should ever have a look like this was a hard-fought war.
All right.
A hard-fought war is when someone tries to save their relationship with poly.
Right.
One person is a hostage.
Mm-hmm.
And one person is the hostage taker.
Right. Now, my other thought on this was seek out more advanced poly. Like you're dealing with level 1. Try to find
new to poly should be your first moment of questioning.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How long have you been here in the poly community? And then how did you come to polyamory? And again, between those two, you should get a good indicator of what it is.
Right. And since you're solo poly, I would be looking for formations of quad, formation of star, formations of different formations, different, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you don't
So you're
want,
saying
oh,
avoid couples kind of like couples aren't a good starter.
no, not when you're
Like,
new poly.
maybe now.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. You know, go for a more complicated poly situation. Like if they have a diagram with phone numbers on it, that's a good sign.
Yeah. Yeah. If within 2 dates they invite you to their Google Calendar,
Yeah. That's a good sign.
that's a good sign.
If they assign you a color, that's even a better sign.
If you hear the words "I have to ask for permission," you should probably go, okay.
Hey, how many permission slips do we have to get?
Yeah, well, because, there's a difference between this date is going differently than I expected, and so I need to confer that change,
Mm-hmm.
and literally playing games of Mother May I.
Right.
Because that's a power imbalance and a lack of self-autonomy within dating.
Right.
Even if they like make it out of being a nesting partner couple who's trying polyamory,
Right.
That's a painful dynamic.
Well, it is, but you know, the other part of that is that shows you that there's veto power, and you don't want veto power. Veto power is not good.
Mm-hmm. Always be concerned if dates end suddenly.
Right.
Like everything was going great, everything was going smooth. You're now getting excuse bombed.
Right.
Like everything went from like, perhaps like, let's go back to your place, have a few drinks, blah, 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 to an immediate turnaround of, I have to work in the morning and I forgot about that. So I have to go home. So sorry to cut the date short.
Right.
Like if there's a total attitude shift, someone just said no.
Right. Or, situations where it's like, well, let's give them the healthy example.
Okay.
If I plan to be out on a date and I'll be home around, 10. And, the healthy example of, I'm going to extend this out a little bit is let me give them a call. I need to make a phone call. Just let them know I'm going to be a little later than I expected. Or I'm not, let them know when I am now expecting to be home. That's a healthy dynamic.
Yeah, that's a let me know.
Right.
And that could honestly be a text message.
Right.
Because my first response isn't like, given a normal circumstance, I'm not saying emergencies don't happen.
Right.
I will personally try to avoid interrupting a date if ever I can.
Right.
But Vlad starts throwing up at 8 o'clock on a Friday night, I'm calling you.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way around that. That's an emergency.
Right.
That's an emergency.
That's an emergency.
Yeah, and you're welcome to come along if that doesn't, if that's something you want to be a part of. Like, that's not the date. Well, I mean, the date's going to kind of end, but like the evening, like you are welcome to come along. I don't have any problems with that.
Right. Well, it's like the last date I was on, middle of the day, there was a smell of gas in the house. Oh, I got talked to very quickly, and it's like, date over, we got to do this.
Yeah. Well, and it's not like there haven't also there and even with partners in the household, dates get interesting. Like, again, I won't typically interrupt a date, but you miss your expected return time by a couple of hours, you get the phone call.
Yes, I do.
And I don't care if they live here too.
Yeah.
like it's like you were going to go do this, this, and this. I have an approximate time frame in my head.
Mm-hmm.
We get much beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll attenuate for like, well, okay, they were going to Walmart. He estimated like 30 minutes for that. Oh God, no! There's no way he got out of Walmart in 30 minutes, ever, for any reason. Like I will attenuate for that.
Right.
But usually about the 2 hour mark, because I figure 2 hours is like, okay, things went a little different.
Mm-hmm.
But about 2 hours is when I'm gonna be like, are you okay?
Yeah.
Like, and I'm looking for, I don't really care what you're doing or where you're
Mm-hmm.
at. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not asking for those details. I want to know if you're okay.
Right.
And like, just as kind of a bump of like, do you realize it's been a couple of hours since we thought you'd be home?
Well, and
So like, I'm not mad if this date's going in a different direction. The car broke down, the whatever. You're waiting on a tow truck. You're,
right.
whatever. It's more so about, are you okay?
Right.
Like,
And you're not the only one that does that.
yeah.
The invisible will send a text when he thinks that we should be done.
Uh-huh.
Not that he is concerned or jealous that we are out or doing things or whatever. It's that, like, you guys should be heading home now. Like, what was it? It was one night we had gone out. We had a show, and we forgot it. Like, it was in the earlier days. Yeah. Oh, he blew up our phones.
Do
Where
you know
are
what
you?
time it is?
Time it is.
Where the hell are you?
Yes.
It's like, ooh, we screwed up.
Yeah.
But no, like, generally though, like, if you can tell that the person is talking to their other half, generally speaking, every single interaction with their other half shouldn't feel like you just got told no.
Right.
Like, it shouldn't look like they dread the text, dread the phone call, had a horrible conversation. Like, if it's a hard fought, if it looks like they went to battle,
right,
this is not going well. This
right.
is a sign of a couple that this may not be what they need to be doing, and you might not want to be a part of this.
Exactly. Like, that is red flag number one. Red flag number two is the inability, for me, it's the inability when they say they're poly to meet the other party. Not to date them, but there needs to be a commonality so that if you show up at a hospital to see somebody, it's not
the first time.
It's not the first time.
And I don't think that necessarily has to be within the first couple of dates. I think there are a fair number of people who are like, maybe this will sound bad. I used to work for a company with high turnover. Okay. And our HR hated the fact, but could not really do anything about it, that we quite frankly told people, I am not bothering to know your name until you've been here for 3 months.
Right.
Because I'm sorry, if I knew the name of everyone that worked here ever in the time that I've been here, my brain would explode.
Right.
It already hurts from the people that didn't make it to lunch.
Right.
Like, I'm sorry, I can't waste that effort.
Well, and I treat potential partners like I would treat potential partners on when you would introduce them to your children. You wouldn't do that in the first 4 days.
Well, basically.
You wouldn't invite them over for a barbecue within the first 4 dates to meet your mother. Same thing there. All right. So,
To the poll.
yes, you're an asshole, but you're also a dill pickle.
Ooh, even split between dill pickle and asshole.
Yes.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yes. All right, guys. We know it's been a little long. We're trying to get that curtailed. But, these are a lot of important topics we had to talk about. We will see you for Psychics That Plans, and you guys will see what happens when you have to regroup.
Yes.
And that'll be on Sunday at 8 p.m.
Mhm.
So with that, let's take care of our baristas.
Absolutely. So, of course, we want to thank Beverly Walker, Mika G, Kathy, Mary Winfield, Brenda, Shannon C, Shannon D, Lady Gwendolyn, Charles Shaw, Tracy Van, Caitlin Bell, and Devin. If you'd like to learn more about us, the show, or how you too can become a Patreon sponsor and receive all the wonderful benefits our baristas receive, please visit us at pcspnetwork.com.
Yes. You guys have an amazing weekend. Stay safe, stay warm, get warm. We'll see you later.
Goodbye.